Hello everyone and happy March. Do you know what the heck is happening in March? That's right, it's freaking Women's History Month and we're gonna learn some freaking women's history today. So I figured in order to kick off Women's History Month, we should talk about some of the inventions that women have created that we still use today that have made our lives better. So subscribe to my channel if you haven't already and let's talk about all of these wonderful ladies. On May 5th, 1809, Mary Kies was the first female inventor in the United States to receive a patent. Mary's invention created a new technique for weaving straw with silk and thread. And Mary's invention made it so much easier for factories to make bonnets and hats for all the ladies to wear. And Mary's invention was truly revolutionary in the clothing industry during this time. And Mary even got praised by the First Lady, Dolly Madison, which was James Madison's wife, because Mary's invention was boosting the hat industry in America. So Mary's technique and invention was super successful. In 1810, straw bonnets that were manufactured in Massachusetts alone had an estimated value of more than $500,000 or over $4.7 million in today's money. So you would think that since Mary's invention grew the economy, that she would grow rich too, right? No. Mary really didn't profit from her invention at all. Why? Because men stole her invention from her and made their own money using her ideas. And then, to make everything worse, in 1813, Mary's husband died, and this is the 1800s. Women ain't got no rights. So Mary had to move in with her son Daniel, who lived in Brooklyn, New York, and Mary died with literally $0 to her name at the age of 85 in 1837, even though she totally revolutionized the hat industry in America. That's really sad, but we should all be thankful for Miss Mary for paving the way for other women to create ideas and make their own inventions. On April 16, 1865, Sarah Mather was granted a patent for her invention that she called the submarine telescope, and her invention was used to see objects that were underwater in the deep sea. Sarah's submarine telescope worked because she had a light bulb inside of the telescope so you could see things that were deep underwater. And Sarah's invention was revolutionary in the marine world. This kind of technology did not exist in the 1800s at that time. Sarah's invention was used to survey wrecks, monitor known obstruction, and Sarah's telescope even helped to spot torpedoes in underwater craft. There isn't a lot of documentation on Sarah's life, so I can't tell you whether or not she died rich or not, but it's the 1800s, so I'd assume that the answer to that would be no. Josephine Cohen is the next woman that we're going to be talking about today because she invented the dishwasher. Josephine came up with this invention because she and her husband were bougie people. I would even go as far as saying that you could describe the Cochens as the Gatsbys of the late 1800s. They were socialites and they enjoyed throwing all these extravagant dinner parties with their friends. Josephine owned super fancy fine china that dated all the way back to the 1600s. So whenever you have a lot of people eating food on your plates, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to find out that you're gonna have a lot of plates to clean. Josephine realized that whenever you would hand wash the plates would sometimes chip. And Josephine did not like whenever her plates chipped because they were really fancy and they were worth a lot of money. She also hated manually doing the dishes. I mean, me too, girl. So to make a long story short, Josephine went into her shed in her backyard and she found a way to make an automatic dishwasher that would delicately clean her fine china. And she did it. After she found a way to do this, she sold her invention to fancy restaurants and hotels, so for a while only wealthy people could afford this invention. And I found this kind of shocking since this is the 1800s and Josephine is a woman, but Josephine actually died pretty wealthy. She had a net worth of about $1 to $5 million in today's money. So the next woman that we're going to be talking about is Mary Walton, and I think out of all the women that we're talking about today, Mary is my favorite. She's so freaking cool. So let's go all the way to New York in the late 1860s. The Civil War just ended, and immigrants from all over are coming to New York to find work in the city. So what's the most convenient way for a person to get from one place to another in a timely manner in this day and age? That's right, a train. Trains were the main source of transportation at this time because cars did not yet exist, which is crazy to think think about, but if you have ever been around a train, you know how freaking loud they are. I live really close to a train and it's really loud and annoying sometimes, and I hate it. And Mary lived close to a train station too, and she was really annoyed with how loud trains were as well. Mary was over it, and so she decided to do something about it. Mary decided to ride the train a couple times to see why trains were so freaking loud, and after a couple days of riding the train, Mary found that the track actually amplified the noise of the train. So Mary conducted an experiment and she created a model railroad in her basement. And in her basement, Mary discovered a way to reduce the noise from trains. Mary cradled the rails in a box-like framework of wood, which was painted with tar, lined with cotton, and filled with sand. As the vibrations from the rails were absorbed by the surrounding materials, so was the sound. So in 1881, Mary decided to patent her invention. And Mary sold the rights to her invention to New York's Metropolitan Railroad. And Mary did pretty well financially because she died with a net worth of around $14 million in today's money. Let's move on to the next woman, and that is Margaret Wilcox. In 1893, women were finally able to patent their inventions under their own name. So on November 28, 1893, that's exactly what Margaret did whenever she patented the first car heater. The only transportation available to consumers during this time was trains. So obviously, Margaret would often ride the train. And every time Margaret rode the train, she was always freezing and uncomfortable because there was no insulation on the trains at this time, and there was no heating system invented yet. So Margaret got tired of being cold and uncomfortable every time she needed to go somewhere, so she decided to invent her own heating system that would heat vehicles. So Margaret began experimenting. Margaret figured that since engines created a lot of heat, that she could channel a lot of air through the engine and then send it back into the train so people could be warm. And it was honestly a pretty genius idea. And after Margaret's invention was patented, it really transformed transportation. And Margaret's invention made it safer to drive in colder areas, and it made it more comfortable for people to be transported. Because for the first time ever, you actually had heated transportation. So every time you use the heat in your car, you could just thank Margaret. So now let's move on to the next lady, which is Florence Parry. Florence was a 20th century housewife, as many women were during this time. One of the problems many housewives faced in the early part of the 20th century was preserving your food so it would last longer and not go bad. So our girl Florence was so tired of her food going bad so quickly, and she decided to do something about it. And in 1914, Florence created the first electric refrigerator. And what makes things even cooler is that Florence also invented an ice tray to go inside. The next woman that we're going to be talking about is Ida Forbes. Do you enjoy taking hot showers or baths, or just hot water in general? I enjoy it. And if you answered yes, then you could thank Ida Forbes for inventing the electric hot water heater, which we still use in our homes today. During the early part of the 20th century, heated baths were heated by gas, but the gas heater could sometimes be a little dangerous, especially if you forgot to turn the burner off, because if you did, that could catch on fire and it could literally burn your house down. And Ida was tired of worrying about whether or not she turned off her gas burner each night, and she decided to make a better invention that was powered by electricity. So that's exactly what she did. Ida Forbes is still impacting all of our lives because we still use electric hot water heaters in our homes today. That is all for me today. I will leave a bunch of links and sources in my description box below. These women are truly amazing, and I think these articles are worth the read, honestly. So comment down below what your favorite invention was or anything else that you want to say, and I will see you guys soon. Bye!